Hello, I will be giving you a rundown between the bands, of the bands between Bad Moon and WS10. Um, yeah, I did a quick search of both teams on Bad Dice Gaming, so it really helped add a little bit of context to some of the bands, which I would have had very different opinions of the bands if I hadn't done this, because it just adds a lot of context to what both teams are comfortable playing. And yeah, I hope you enjoy. Marathi ban. So, I mean, I think if you take Marathi out of that army, what are your builds left? So either you go super heavy witch elves, or I mean, you can't really go Bloodstalkers anymore because Marathi's not there to give them the hero phase shooting. So I think your only build would be sort of witch elf spam, like 90 witch elves, maybe a few stalkers to harass the backline. You're, I don't think you can. I think there are other armies that can play a heavy witch elf style better, or a harassment style better, where if you had like lots of little units of shadow stalkers teleporting around the board. So I mean, it's still a good army, but I think there are other armies that could do what it does without Marathi better. Um, so that's, I mean, I wouldn't take Daughters of Cain without Marathi. So, um, yeah. Then Bad Moon's band Raptures. This is yeah, so WS10 have a player in their roster who exclusively plays Stormcast, so this is just targeted ban at him to try and force him onto something other than Shootcast. Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton to it. I don't know what else he could play. He's probably got something he can play, I'd imagine. The other thing is, you can play a lot of different variations of Stormcast. It's like you don't just have to play Shootcast. Like you can go combat heavy builds. You can go more toolbox builds where you have lists with shooting and combat mix. I think banning Raptures takes away the all shooting versions of Stormcast, just because you can't have like a unit of 9 Raptures, hero phase shooting, and normal shooting. You could still go ballistas. Like you could have a toolbox list with ballistas as for shooting, but I don't think, I mean, because you can only have 4 ballistas in the list, like you can't have a shooting list of just ballistas. So I mean, it takes away the shoot cast option. So this is just trying to force one of WS10 players onto something less comfortable. Bella Corban. Now, like we've been seeing a lot of Slaves to Darkness bans. I don't know why that is exactly. Slaves to Darkness, I wouldn't call them a meta army. Um, like the army just kind of sucks. I don't know. Compared to other armies, like I mean, we saw this weekend where I mean it was technically a Slanesh list, but it was comprised of all Slaves to Darkness units, bar a Keeper of Secrets, I think. So and it just went 0-3, and I thought he played quite well. I thought the Slanesh player played quite well. Well, actually, I think he played very well. Like I don't know what else he could have done in those matchups, just because his army was that much worse than his opponents. Playing into Slanesh and Bigwa, it's like it just felt that his opponent's armies was so much better than his that he just couldn't win. And so, look, I don't know why people want to constantly want to play Slaves to Darkness, but I mean, it's kind of just because it's yeah, like I think it is almost impossible to win as Slaves to Darkness just because the army it's just so bad. I think I mean, it's like you've got units of Marauders which are hit hard but are extremely light, or you've got units of Chaos Knights and stuff which are extremely heavy armored but don't hit very hard. Whereas you could have our boys who hit very hard and are extremely heavy armored. It's like there are armies which just can do better than what Slaves to Darkness do. Okay, so moving on into Mortek crawlers. Again, I don't think Ossiarch Bone Reapers are good at all. Yeah, I mean, the thing about Mortek crawlers is that Mortek crawlers provide range. So I mean, if you were to take Mortek crawlers and put them in like a book like Stormcast, like they wouldn't see any play. It's like the efficiency of their shooting is terrible, but it's the fact that it's the only shooting in the book that makes it good. Because it's Bone Reapers is a very um it's slow. it doesn't have extremely high threat ranges, and so Mortek crawlers can just threaten across the board, and provides that kind of yeah, shooting utility, I guess. Um, yeah, but I mean, as a unit, it's not good. As an army, it's Bone Reapers isn't good. So, I mean, I wouldn't have banned this. Then okay, lastly, Flamers. This one is a bit pretty exciting. So Bad Moon has a player on their roster who plays Tzeentch exclusively. So I think this is a very interesting ban, because why would you ban Flamers if you have, and whenever I say exclusively, like the only thing this guy's ever taken to any tournament on Bad Dice rankings is Tzeentch. Like this going back to like 2018. Like this is hardcore Tzeentch player. I think this is like I think this is a fake aggro ban. I think this is almost like a safety ban. He's gonna play Host Duplicitous Tzeentch, Host Duplicitous Change Host. If you don't know what that is, it's literally you just take 200 wounds of horrors. You charge 100 wounds of horrors at your opponent turn 1, and then the other 100 wounds of horrors goes onto the objectives. And because you can't retreat from any of it, because it's in the Host Duplicitous, what do you call it, sub-faction, yeah, you're pinned in your deployment, and you have to try and get through 100 wounds of horrors, and by the time you've done that, they've probably won the game on objective points. So that's how that army plays. I think that's what they're going for here, because I mean, I don't see any other reason why you'd ban Flamers when you have a Tzeentch 1 trick on your team. But yeah, we'll see. Okay, WS10, Morsar Guard. So we've already seen in the bans that there is an extremely heavy emphasis on shooting, and it will continue that way. Idoneth can perform really well into shooting armies. So I mean, you think because of their allegiance ability, which forces all missile weapons to shoot the closest unit, that's a really strong ability into shooting. So by banning shooting, you almost indirectly nerf Idoneth Deepkin, because there's less favourable matchups in there for them to go up against. Combine that with the fact that you're banning Morsar Guard, which is Idoneth Deepkin's by far strongest unit. Yeah, it's gonna. I wouldn't be thinking we're gonna see much Idoneth Deepkin being played. Sentinels. Sentinels is I mean, it's one of the strongest units in that Lumineth book, because it's just simply that you have a unit with a 36-inch threat range, which can just pop characters in one turn. I think a unit of 10 archers will average about 3 mortal wounds, so you have 20 archers, 6 mortal wounds, then that just pops a character across the board. Like that could be a key war chanter, a guy who has a teleport spell. It's like there's a lot of different things. It could even be like a skink star priest who buffs up, you know, the skinks and Seraphonless. Like there's a lot of different things that archers can do, and just taking that away from it, it really impacts the. I think it really does impact the power level of this army, because it typically wants to play this kind of pick-off style using the archers, where you just sort of slowly chip away at your opponent rather than sort of having like a big beat stick. Whereas just because like there isn't really anything in that army that damages like super heavily, like you'll get, I mean, you could get Alarith, the big cow guy. He hits really hard. Other than that, like that, the book's pretty light on damage. Like it doesn't do a ton of damage, and how it plays is this kind of like pick-off style. I think that's going to be really hard to play without Sentinels. I mean, like you could go maybe techless and go like super heavy spears and stuff, but I think if you're going to go down that road, like there are armies that can play that style of list better than Lumineth can. So I mean, I'm not sure if we're going to see any Lumineth lists run. Okay, so Salamanders. Okay, so banning Salamanders drastically increases the skill needed to play Seraphon. It's like Salamanders is that unit which can just walk around the board independent of other units. I mean, sure, you can buff it up and you can give it retreat and shooting and all that, but that unit in the Seraphon book that doesn't need to be buffed. Like as a standalone unit, it can just be teleported across the board, go do stuff. Um, it's just like as an whereas I mean, right, compare it to skinks. Skinks need +1 to hit and mortal wounds, which is need to be kept wholly within 18 and 12 of two separate characters as a 40 block of skinks. It's like you need to sort of take care of that a bit. Whereas salamanders, like they just go off do their own thing, and there's not much sort of positioning needed for the just value you get. So removing salamanders from that list, Seraphon is still insane. It still should go 3-0 if it's in the hands of the proper player. But yeah, this is gonna really if you don't know your stuff as a Seraphon player, this is gonna make it show. And then gun haulers, this almost seems like a safety ban for KO. Maybe because earlier in the ban phase, Badmund banned the Raptors. Maybe that's it was a targeted ban at a Stormcast player on WS10. Maybe he's going to try and transition from that Stormcast shooting army into a KO shooting army. It's still a little bit different in how they play, but if that might be what they're going for, so they're thinking we'll safety ban this so that he has an army to play. And then last ban was the Stonehorn. I'm assuming there's someone on Bad Moons that plays ogres. I didn't check for ogres, but this wouldn't be a thing I'd ban. I think I'd be very happy if any of my opponents played ogres. I don't think ogres are good into any of the meta armies, like at all. Maybe Lumineth, but other than that, I think they lose to every other meta army. And Lumineth's one of those lists where if your opponent plays well, like you can win. If the Lumineth player plays well, he's gonna win as many games as how he plays well. Like there's an insanely high skill ceiling on Lumineth. So I don't see ogres as doing anything relevant. So what are we going to see? I have absolutely no idea. I think we're going to see Seraphon from both teams. I think Badmoon is going to play Zinch, and WS10 will probably play KO. Other than that, I have no idea, because both these teams spewed out a ton of targeted bans at their opponent's team, or bans that just make armies worse, rather than sort of signalling that we want to play this army. I think that's really good, because it means for future rounds, all the other teams did a safety ban, which so going into their next round, their opponents will know they wanted to play this army, and we can just target ban that. Whereas for Badmoon and WS10, both of them did targeted bans at their opponents, so they didn't really give away what they desperately want to play, unlike the other teams. So I can't give you much predictions on this because they haven't revealed much, basically. And yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoy it. I'll see you in the next one.